This show really is great. I have to say, I really liked
Thank
it.
you.
I don't automatically always go to political questions, but I feel like I have to because it feels like this show is talking about abuse of power and just power structures in a way that's so relevant right now, especially to this administration. And just, I gotta get your guys' impression on that and just speaking to the idea of its timing in the world when there aren't a lot of places and people who will speak about or try to uncover every little thing that's going on.
Well, that's a terrific question and totally understand. And by the way, the first time I've done an interview where you see Kobe and Kermit on this in the background, it's amazing. But no, man, it's a great question. I think, like these things have a long tail, TV development does. And, we set this up 4 years ago. It's been a 4 year journey to get to this point. So there's certain things you can't time. There's certain things you
Sure.
can't account for and plan for. But obviously, the environment where all of these events took place is the not too distant past. And then obviously we're living through what we're living through. I think the thing we really wanted to do was we just really rolled up our sleeves and said, what does this particular story at this moment in time and in this setting mean? And then in depicting that, if in that exploration there's other things that it illuminates, that's terrific. And as you point out, it's the timing of things feels very, very interesting. And I think like for us, it's like we wanted to keep the focus on the family, and then let's see what it unearths for and the community and the saga itself, and then let's see what it unearths as we're exploring that. And I think it was a really it felt like fortuitous timing in so many ways.
I think that had this, crime taken place 20 years ago, likely Alec Murdaugh would have gotten away with it. And so we're at this time where we're all so much more aware of sort of like the center of power and how it holds, but also we now see how it can crumble. And so I think that when we think about like Mandy Matney, who was a local reporter who wanted to do a big story, who was told by many people in real life that that's not her lane, get in her lane, get back to the listicles, but said, no, I'm going to follow this. And so, this is really about what one person can do to uncover something so big. And I think that all of us could use that inspiration.
Yeah. And I think and I think like, the story in and of itself, and again, this is just this story, unchecked power, unchecked privilege over, generations, it metastasizes and eventually that's going to rupture at some point. And, obviously within this very tragic true story, it did. And I think that was what, we took as our inspiration to adapt in the way we did it. But yeah, I mean, I think it's really like that feels like it's both timely and timeless in so many ways.
Thank you both. So beautifully said. And I appreciate the answers. I want to ask, there's things Erin, you've been a documentarian. There's things about shifting this story into the dramatization that's different. There's liberties that have to be taken and things like that. But there's also choices. And I think one of the things that strikes me is choices that didn't happen necessarily or you wouldn't know. And I'm curious if you can speak about some of those choices you made together that changed perhaps a little bit of what we're experiencing and why you did it.
I think that there was little known about Maggie Murdaugh. And I think that there was just, that she owned a store in town. She got married when she was younger. She was being pursued by other people. And Alec Murdaugh just like sort of said, this is my wife, right? And so to be able to go into sort of like an us, to fictionalize the relationship between her and her sister and what had previously potentially happened in her marriage. I mean, that just gives you so much more access to the story. And so as a documentary filmmaker who has to really stick with the facts, it was like, wait, what? I have a whole new canvas and paintbrushes and I can do things and say things. And like, it was extraordinary. All while still remembering, obviously, that this is based on real people and, excuse me, it's inspired by real people and real events. But yeah, I think that, Michael was really sort of this architect of like, there's the truth and there's the story truth. But I will say I am a huge true crime fan in both genres. And like, we have some pretty accurate stuff in there that is for the deep, deep cut Murdaugh people, but I'll
Yeah.
say you.
Well, and like to give one example is, in the pilot episode, we see our Alec is getting a jellyfish business up and running. In Truth, that was something that had happened years prior to when we start the show. What he was involved in Truth was a lot of land deals, a lot of other type of side businesses, but that felt like taking that detail was a very visceral and vivid, and felt, again, being from the South, felt like a very Southern business endeavor to undertake. And it just, was so specific in that texture. So, that's an adaptation choice, where the reality was, land deals and other things that he was involved in. For us, it's like, okay, let that be a stand-in for that. And the dramatization of that, is just one example of where, a choice was made, but to hopefully tell, still have attachment to the reality and the truth, but it to be a story truth, ultimately.
It adds flavor, no pun
Yeah,
intended. But
exactly. Well put.
So much.
Yeah.
I have to wrap, but I could ask you guys questions about this all day. So have fun.
Awesome. Well, thanks, man. No, yeah, great
Appreciate
stuff. And love your background, man. It's amazing. I just saw Darth Vader too. That's amazing.
Thank you so much.